And a very good afternoon, good morning, depending on what time zone you happen to be in or at what time of the day you're listening to the show. Perhaps later on you're listening to one of our podcasts on Apple or Spotify or Google Podcasts. But if you're listening right now, you're listening to us on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you very much for listening. We appreciate you listening to the show. And I'll tell you, we're watching our ratings. We're moving up along the line, doing very, very well. Want to thank you guys out there because I know you're putting the word out. More and more people are starting to listen to us. If you're living up in Canada, because the betting situation up there has become legalized as well. If you have any friends up there, or if you're living there right now and you're listening to the show, make sure you let your friends know that we're around. We're here to help them get started. Like I said, being contrarian here in the sports wagering zone, we love to see new people coming on board to start betting. We want those casual bettors. We want those recreational bettors. The guys who bet, yeah, every now and then. They were probably skeptical about betting earlier before the legalization because they don't want to get involved with, crime people or, organized crime or whatever you want to call it. So people kind of strayed away from things like that. But of course, a lot of us, and I grew up in the New York metropolitan area, things like that didn't scare us off at all. Most of us get started somewhere around about the time we get to learn how to read and get to know numbers, we start getting involved. So anyway, I'm glad the statute of limitations is up because I could talk about it. So anyway, thank you very much for listening. I am Chris Pardo. I'm here live in Charlotte, North Carolina. A lot to talk about today. We're not going to talk any basketball. There's only one game on tap, and that one game does not fit in to the pattern for the pros to pick a winner or a play in that particular game. But we do have three baseball games to look at. Take a up and close look. We're going to check the line movement. We're going to check how the pros are going on these games as well. We got the Rockies against the Brewers, got the Baltimore Orioles against the Toronto Blue Jays, and the Seattle Mariners against the Chicago White Sox. And of course, we're also going to be talking about the streaks, winning and losing streaks. We got some reports on that as well. So as usual, we're going to take our usual situation before we get started with all this other business. We're going to go over what happened yesterday as far as betting is concerned in the world of sports. And the reason for that, once again, just to let you know, this way we're giving you the stats, the data that you might need to help you become a better handicapper. That's the only reason we do this, kind of let you know the favorites, as opposed to the underdogs, how well, how bad they're doing. Also, home teams, road teams, things of that nature. So this way you'll know what they are so that whatever system you're using, we're not here to tell you bet on any particular system. Whatever you're using at the present time, perhaps some of the information we give you will help to strengthen it and make it better. But of course, we do talk about the pros and which direction they're going. Again, we give you that information. It's up to you to decide how you want to use it, but it's available to you. And now we started talking about streaking, so we'll go into some of that as well. But like I said, let's see what happened yesterday. In the National Hockey League, the Canadiens, a plus 130 home underdog, upset the Golden Knights 3-2 in overtime. They won their semifinal series 4-2. Now, if you're betting on the puck line, you pushed yesterday because the number was 5. Now, the Dogs lead 7-5 in this round, but the favorites, they still lead overall in the playoffs 39-36. The home teams lead 7-5 in this round and overall 41-37. The unders were 4-2 in this round. They are still at 38-33 as far as being on top. So those are the stats in the National Hockey League. kind of give you an idea as how it's going. And of course, again, we talked about this before. You guys that bet hockey in the National Hockey League bets, in other words, throughout the season, you favorite guys really, really covered. There was no doubt about it. You dominated the early season. Once the playoffs began, and hasn't really changed much since then, the dogs do lead in this round 7-5. And when you're betting dogs and you have a plus 130, plus 140, you're over the 100 mark, you're doing pretty good. You don't have to win as many games. So that's the story with the Hockey League. Meanwhile, in the NBA, the Clippers, a 1-point dog. A home dog, by the way, rallied in the second half. They beat the Suns 106-92. They are now one game closer. They're 2-1 in their Western Conference Finals. And, of course, the total stayed under the 221 number that was there. Now, as we take a look at the favorites against the dogs, the 2-2 yesterday, or actually 2-2 in this round is what it is so far as favorites and underdogs, 2-2 straight up in this round. But they're 3-1 against the spread. The dogs are 3-1. Favorites and dogs 2-2, but the dogs lead 3-1 against the spread. The favorites lead 45-26 straight up, but they're 40-30 against the spread, which is just a little over 57% overall. The home teams are 3-1 straight up, but the home road situation, 2-2 against the spread in this round right now. The home teams, they lead 40-31 straight up, but they're at 37-33 against the spread, which is almost 53% overall the entire playoffs so far. The over-under was 2-2 in this round. The unders still lead by one game, 35-34. So that's the wrap-up on the NBA. Meanwhile, in Major League Baseball, the favorites, they went crazy. 7-3 with the biggest upsets by the Cubs being a plus 220 on the money line against the Dodgers. And the Cubs got their very first franchise combined no-hitter. The first no-hitter in Cubs history. It's the seventh no-hitter so far this season, which ties the record of 7 starting in the year 1900, the modern era, in other words, okay? So one more, and it's going to be a new record. There's just something going on with the pitching and the hitting so far. The pitchers are really becoming more dominant, more different types of pitches that they throw, confusing the batters much more. That's how you get 7 no-hitters. So far, we're not even halfway through the season. We have 7 no-hitters. But, of course, usually as the season progresses, the hitters do start getting better. They start catching up. The pitchers always seem to start pretty good in the beginning. Now, the upsets yesterday also were by Pittsburgh, a plus 140 against St. Louis. Cleveland, a plus 165 against Minnesota. Now, the favorites, they lead, and they're at 58% so far. The unders are 6-3-1, but the overs still lead 544 to 529, which is just a little over 50%, almost closer to 51% if you take those numbers and put them into your machine, or if you can calculate it out in your brain, that's good as well too. So that's the story as to what happened yesterday as far as sports betting was concerned in the 3 major sports that were on tap for yesterday and as well as for today. So, like I said, nothing to talk about as far as basketball is concerned, because the one game that's on tap for today, the pros don't have any realization or thought as to which way they wanted to go. If you were listening yesterday, you know how close the Suns-Clippers situation was, although eventually the pros did lean on to the Suns, and you could tell that because the Clippers were a 1-point dog going into the game. We told you yesterday that if it flipped the other way, if the Suns became the dog, then you should go on to the Clippers. But in yesterday's game, Up at that point in time, it was the Suns, so that's the way we're going to carry it. So yesterday was a loss as far as the pro picks were concerned, but they're still at 64.1%. We've had 53 plays in that category with 34 winners. So then 64%, not a bad total as far as the NBA and the championships were concerned. So that's the story there. We're going to take our first break. And if you've listened to the show before, you know we take 3 breaks within the show. Each one is of about a 1-minute duration. So when we come back, we're going to talk baseball, and that's what it is. So we'll be back into the sports wagering zone in 1 minute. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Sports Wagering Zone. Told you 1 minute and we'll come right back. No problem there at all. Just a minute just to take a drink of water or something so our throats don't get too dry, talking for 40 minutes or so on the air here. So anyway, that's the story. No problem. You're listening to us right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina. That's where we are. I'm Chris Pardo. And of course, you might be listening on one of the podcast platforms. We're on most of the major podcast platforms, at least the bigger ones like Amazon. We're on Apple, Spotify, you name it, we're there as well. So it's Friday, and we have baseball talk today. But, you know, if you want to get a hold of us, it's very, very simple. If you have any comments about the show, I always say we've been doing a show for well over 5 years now. And we kind of fall into a certain way of doing it. Everything seems to be going fine. We do tweak it here or there. Sometimes we'll get an email from somebody who brings something to our attention that might be something more we might want to talk about, or maybe we talk too much about a certain subject. So whatever it is, if you have any comments, by all means, we want to hear about it because we're trying to hone this show down so that you can listen to it, get that 35, 40-minute break a day and get the information that you can use, whether to be a good handicapper or if you just want to hear what choices the pros are taking for that particular day. And again, it's totally up to you. So to get a hold of us is very simple. Just send an email. Send it to the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. That's the at gmail.com. And also, we're still trying to put the newsletter together. Hopefully, we can have it prior to the opening of the NFL season and college basketball, college football. We hope to have it up and running as well. So if you have any interest in getting the newsletter, being part of it, we need to know ahead of time, because if we don't have enough people interested, we're just not going to go through with it, because there's a lot of work involved in getting a newsletter out every day to you to give you an idea as to line movement or things of that nature ahead of the show. So this way, if you want to start making an earlier bet, you can. So if you are interest, you have any interest whatsoever, just send us an email also to the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. And all you have to say is, yes, I'm interested in the upcoming newsletter. And of course, we'll keep you on file. And if we do go through with it, and we'll be talking about it from now on, then of course, you will be part of it as well. So that's the story there. Once again, that address, the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. And all you got to do is simply say, hey, I'm interested. let me know when you're ready, or just whatever, just as long as we know that you do have an interest. Okay. Anyway, let's look at the 3 baseball game taps on tap for today. We got the Colorado Rockies and the Milwaukee Brewers. It's Friday. And on Friday, we kind of call it Fade the Public Friday. Again, that expression comes from way back when, because people would get paid on Friday, and Friday was the day that most of the people, the general public, would come in and start betting. They probably didn't bet very much from Monday through Thursday, but once Friday came in, they went in, so that we call that Fade the Public Friday. Because what's going to happen is, with all that money coming in from the general public, from the recreational bettors, it's going to skewer the line, and it's going to skewer the line in the favor of us contrarians. So that's the story there. So let's get back to baseball. 4:10 p.m. Colorado Rockies, 31-44 this season, playing against the Milwaukee Brewers. They're at 42-33. Now, this is a late afternoon game. You got one of the best teams in the National League, and they're playing probably one of the worst teams in the league. The Rockies own the 5th worst record in Major League Baseball. The Brewers are now tied with the Cubs for first place in the National League Central. So in today's first game, the Rockies start their righty, John Gray. He's 4-6 so far this season with a 4.29 ERA. The Brewers come in with their ace, Corbin Burnes. He's 3-4 this season, but with a 2.62 ERA. Now, as we look at the line for today's game, it opened with Milwaukee, a minus 220 home favorite, and Colorado as a plus 200 road dog. That was the open. Now, in this particular game, not only the professional bettors, but also the general public, they're on the same team. They're laying big numbers with the Brewers. Now, this lopsided action has really driven the Brews up from being a minus 220 to a minus 235 on the money line. Now, keep some things in mind. Because you're going to, number one, if you like the Brewers, or you're going to go along with the pros on the Brewers in this game, remember something, 235, you're going to be laying some heavy wood on this game. It's going to cost you $235 to win 100. Right? Non-division home teams that get 10 cents of steam, which is the situation here, or more, have gone at almost 65% this season. Favorites, the home favorites, of being minus 150 or more after they had a day off because Milwaukee didn't play yesterday, are at almost 70%. So once again, analytically, the Brewers fall into these two categories. Milwaukee also has value. They're a big favorite coming into a game with a low total. The total opened at 7.5. Now, historically, low totals always benefit the favorites because there's less amount of runs that are expected to be scored, and the runs that are going to be scored are going to be scored by the better team. That's the philosophy and the thought into coming into that process. Milwaukee is 27-23 as a favorite this season. The Rockies are 22-39 as a dog. The Brewers are 32-26 against righties. The Rockies, they're 20-34 against righties. You got 2 righties going today. Now, Colorado has the worst road record of any team in baseball. They're just 6-29. 6-29 as a visitor. Now, we could be looking at a lower scoring game in this one. The total, like I said, 7.5, with the under juiced up to minus 115 on the money line. So in this particular situation, Milwaukee Brewers, Colorado Rockies, not only the pros, but also the general public coming in heavy on the Brewers in this game. And of course, from an analytical standpoint, they are the pick as well. Meanwhile, at 7 o'clock tonight, you got the Baltimore Orioles, 23-52, up against those Toronto Blue Jays that are actually playing in Florida, 38-35. The Blues crushed the Orioles 9-0 last night's first game. They easily won the game, minus 180 on the money line as home favorites. Now, Toronto has now won 5 straight. Baltimore has dropped 6 straight. And we'll talk more about this when we get into the segment as we talk about winning and losing streaks. The Orioles are just 1-14 over their past 15 games. Now, in this afternoon's game, Baltimore comes out with their righty, Matt Harvey. He's 3-9 with a 7.8 ERA. Toronto comes in with their young righty, Alex Manoah. He's 1-0 so far this season with a 4.18 ERA. So as we look at the line at this game, it opened with the Jays as a heavy minus 200 home favorite. The Orioles are a plus 185 road dog. Now, the pros aren't going to outsmart themselves in this situation. They're once again celebrating what they call Fade Harvey Day by steaming up the Blue Jays from minus 200 at the open to minus 225 on the money line. So the Orioles, well, they're a putrid 1-8 in the last 9 games that was started by Harvey. So that's why they're kind of fading Harvey, okay? Home favorites, minus 200 or more, are at almost 76% this season. If they're also coming off a win, it goes up to 77% for the season. Toronto's hitting 260 on the season, good for the second best numbers in major leagues. Baltimore is just 11-26 on the road. The total opened at a high 11 runs. The public is hammering the over on this day because of Harvey's pitching, yet we've actually seen the line drop down from 11 down to 10.5. So what this means is some of the pro money is causing a reverse line movement to the under. So if you're looking at this game, once again, if you go along with the pros, Toronto Blue Jays over the Baltimore Orioles, you're going to be laying some heavy wood once again. But also, they like the under in this game as well. So those are the 2 games we talked about so far. Colorado against Milwaukee. They're the pros and the general public on the Brewers. Toronto against Baltimore. Everybody's on Toronto as well in this game. And like I said, in both games, you're going to be laying some heavy wood. So you better really think about it as to how you want to handle the situation. So we're going to take our second break. And when we do come back, there's one more game we want to take a look at that's on tap for later on today. And that's the Seattle Mariners against the Chicago White Sox. And we're also going to be talking about the winning and losing streaks as well. So let's take that second break, and we'll be back right after this. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you very much for listening. We're coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as podcasting on most of your podcast platforms, again, such as Apple, uh, also, we're on iHeartRadio podcast. Well, most of the major ones. I want to keep going over and over on that. We're also on Blackjack TV back on the East Coast. And also, we're on milehighradio.com out there in the Colorado region as well. So if you tuned in a little late, you just tuned in, we talked about two baseball games that are on tap for today, a 4 o'clock game, Rockies against the Brewers. The pros and the general public, everybody is on the Milwaukee Brewers, which means you're going to be laying some heavy wood somewhere around minus 235 or even higher on the money line if you like Milwaukee in this game. Meanwhile, the Orioles against the Blue Jays, that's a 7 o'clock game. And of course, this one goes the same way. Everybody and his brother, they're on the Toronto Blue Jays, which means you're going to be laying some heavy wood, heavy juice on this one as well. It's already gone up to around 225, 230. It may go even higher than that. On this particular game, the pros are on the under in this game as well as far as the total runs is concerned. And of course, the unders also in the first game we talked about as well. So we have one more game to look at. It's a night game at 8 o'clock, somewhere around that time. And of course, Eastern time. We're always talking Eastern time. Seattle Mariners, 39-37. Up against the Chicago White Sox, 44-30 so far this season. Now, these are non-divisional teams. And if you look at them a little closer, you'll see that they're actually going in opposite directions lately. The Mariners, they're an impressive 8-2 over their last 10 games. And while the first place White Sox are just 1-5 over their last 6 games. So in tonight's first game, the Mariners come in with their lefty, Yusei Kikuchi. He's 4-3 with a 3.46 ERA. And the White Sox, they come back with their left-hander, Carlos Rodon, who's 6-2 this season with a 1.83 phenomenal ERA. So as we look at the line now, open with Chicago, a minus 170 home favorite. Seattle, a plus 160 road dog on the money line. And the pros, once again, they're not being scared off by those big numbers. So they, in this game as well, have steamed the White Sox up from minus 170 to minus 180. Now, some of the shops are even getting closer to 190. We kind of noticed that in Vegas before we came on the air today. The White Sox have value as from an analytical standpoint because they're a non-divisional home favorite. And they are at almost 63% this season. The White Sox are also one of the best teams against the lefties this season. They're going an impressive 18-6 against left-handers this season. Chicago's going to lean on their advantage at the plate in this particular game. The White Sox are hitting 250, which is the 5th best number in the league. The Mariners, they're down and hitting at 215, which puts them in 29th place. Now, Chicago is 27-12 at home. Seattle, 15-21 on the road. We've also seen some under money coming up in this game, dropping that total from 8 to 7.5. Now, looking at the weather, because, this is Chicago, the Windy City, the forecast calls for temperatures in the mid-70s, 10-mile-per-hour winds blowing into home plate from right center. That's why you're seeing some action coming in on the under portion for this particular game. So in this game, the pros very big on the Chicago White Sox, not going to be laying as much as you're going to be laying on the first 2 games, but in all 3 games, they're on the favorites, and it works out that way sometimes because, they look for value. I always say most of the time, and you'll see that more often during the NFL season, by the way, you'll see where they're mostly on the side of the underdogs. They pick a lot of dogs, but that doesn't mean that they stay away when it comes to favorites. They look at them. If they feel there's some value, by value I mean by whatever they have to lay out and the return they're going to get, they love it that way. They go with the favorites as well. That's why today, in all three baseball games on tap for today, Rockies against the Brewers, the pros and the general public, everybody, they're all on the Milwaukee Brewers. The Blue Jays against the Orioles, once again, general public, the pros, they're on the Blue Jays. But in those two games, trust me, you're going to be laying some heavy wood in this particular situation. Now, sometimes it's worth it. You just have to decide how it is as far as you're concerned. And finally, the Seattle Mariners against the Chicago White Sox. In that game, the pros are on the Chicago White Sox in that game as well. So that's the story for the three games on tap for tonight and today. Of course, like I said earlier, we do not have any basketball to talk about today. There's only one game on tap. We're into the final rounds of the NBA tournament. So whatever the game it is, it's the Bucks game. And as far as the pros are concerned, they just don't seem to see any value at this moment. Now, it may change during the day. If you watch the line movement on it, you can kind of keep an eye on it to see what happens. As of now, though, they're kind of staying away from that game for the time being. So yesterday, just to give you an idea, we had three selections in the baseball. White Sox against the Pirates. We had the Pirates, and of course, that was a loser in that game. And we had the Rockies against Seattle, had the Rockies in that game, which was a winning situation. And the Dodgers against the Padres. We had the Dodgers in that game, and they lost that game. So yesterday we had three plays. We had one winner. The day before that, we had two plays, both losers. The day before that, three plays, two winners, one loser. The day before that, two winners and one loser. Kind of give you an idea as how the flow is, because some people, they look at things like that. Oh, how's it doing? Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it ready to turn? That's the whole thing. And that's the way some people look at it. And that's how they lay their bets according to where they see things going. So let's get that final break out of the way. When we come back, we're going to look at the winning-losing streaks on tap for today and how they did yesterday. So just a reminder, you're in the sports wagering zone. You'll be back in 1 minute. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Once again, thank you very much for listening. Believe me, we appreciate you listening to the show. So the three games on tap for today, Rockies against the Brewers. Pros, everybody's on the Brewers. Baltimore against Toronto. Toronto is the big pick. Everyone's on that one as well. Seattle against the White Sox. Everybody is on the White Sox in that game. So you got three big favorites. Be prepared to lay a lot of juice if you're going to bet any of those games, betting on the favorites. So that's the story there. In the meantime, we started looking at losing and winning streaks, okay? So yesterday, now we went into great detail over the past week or so, talking about exactly what we're looking at and what we're trying to do. The most important thing for you to remember is, number one, what number you place that being a streak. we think here at this show that once you've gone 6 losses or 6 wins, that starts a streak. Okay. Now you may think it's 8. You may want 9 or 10 or 7. That's totally up to you. We're just going to report to you how it's doing at 6. You can take it from there. As always, we always leave everything up to you. We kind of show you what we're doing. You can come along with us and do what we're saying, or you can say it's not a bad idea, but I think it should be 8 instead of 6, which is all good and well. Depends on what you feel comfortable with. Yesterday, we had 2 plays. You had Houston against Detroit. Houston had a 10-game winning streak going into yesterday. They did win, so they have an 11-game winning streak. Today, they play against Detroit once again. They have an 11-game winning streak. Now, you have to decide at this point if you're going to bet this game, okay, if you think that Houston's going to continue on, they're hot, they're going to win a few more games, then you would bet on Houston. If not, if you think, I think they've kind of reached their peak, they're going to start going the other way, then you can bet on Detroit. So you can see how that type of information can go and work for you either way you want to look at it, okay? Also, you got Baltimore against Toronto. Baltimore yesterday, Baltimore now lost their 6th game yesterday, so now they fall into Toronto. So Baltimore is on a 6-game losing streak. We talked about the Toronto game earlier. Everybody and his brother is going to be betting on Toronto, so there's a good possibility that, according to that thinking anyway, that Baltimore is going to lose their 7th straight game. But again, you can bet them to win because maybe they'll pull it off somehow. You just never know. Like I said, Houston against Detroit, they're at 11. The other game was Tampa Bay against the Red Sox. Now, the interesting thing about Tampa Bay and the Red Sox in yesterday's game was the fact that Tampa Bay already had broken through their losing streak the day before. And they came into a category that we call a swagger theory, which basically says once a team comes out of a winning streak or a losing streak and they finally break it, like Tampa Bay did, they were on a losing streak. They had a 7-game losing streak. They wound up winning. So that was what we call a swagger win. So they were a bet yesterday to win the game after coming off of their victory. So you can bet them if you want, but that situation is kind of dead for today. The other game that's still on tap, that's San Diego, that is has a 7-game streak going so far. Plus, on the plus side, playing against Arizona, which happens to be without a doubt one of the worst teams in the league. But again, San Diego is now at 7 straight wins. They would be a bet either way. Now, again, if you think they're going to win 8 games, you jump on San Diego. If you think they're going to get beat, you jump on Arizona. So those are the 3 games for today. Baltimore at a 6-game losing streak. Houston's on an 11-game winning streak. And San Diego is on a 7-game winning streak as well. So we'll keep you up to date on these type of things. And that swagger theory did work out yesterday. Tampa Bay, which would have been the bet, they did come back and they did win after coming out of their losing streak. So that's the story there. Meanwhile, in baseball for tonight, once again, the Rockies against the Brewers, the pros and the general public. Everybody is on the Brewers in that particular game. So get ready to lay a lot of wood if you're interested in that game. Also, the Toronto-Baltimore game, they're playing, Toronto's the home team, but they're playing in Florida, okay, which doesn't make much difference. But Baltimore against Toronto, Toronto is the favorite of the pros and the general public once again. And then you got Seattle against the White Sox in Chicago. the pros are on the White Sox as well as the general public. So in the first two games, you have to get ready. You're going to have to lay some heavy wood in those two games. You have to lay some wood in this other game as well, but that's totally up to you. And once again, Houston is on an 11-game winning streak. Baltimore is now on a 6-game losing streak. And of course, San Diego is on a 7-game winning streak. So that's an update on that situation as well. So thank you very much for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow. We're here on Saturday and Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Monday through Friday, we're here at noon Eastern Time. Saturday and Sunday, we come on an hour earlier at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So until tomorrow at 11 o'clock, I'm Chris Pardo. We've been coming to you live from the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network right here in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's Friday. It's the end of the week. Have a very pleasant Friday. Go out, spend some time with your family. Go out and have some fun. Go have a few drinks, have some dinner or whatever. Enjoy the Friday. The week is over. We're coming into the weekend. So that's the story there. But if you're going to be betting, I hope you have a profitable Friday as well, in addition to having a pleasant one. So thank you very much for listening. Once again, we will be back again tomorrow right here from Charlotte, North Carolina on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Goodbye, everybody.